At the beginning of the Rotary year, I published a video that talked about all the things that I believe are important for the Rotary year, and if you haven't had an opportunity to see it yet, then can I encourage you to see it. If you have seen it, then what I'm going to talk about today recaps a few of those things. And there are a couple of things I'd also like to talk about that aren't on the video. I'll try and make this all as short as I can, because at the end I'd like to be available to you to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. So that can be questions, it can be comments you want to make to me, information you want me to have, give me opinions, ask me for opinions, whatever it is you'd like. We can have Chatham House rules in here too if you like, in whatever way you want to conduct the meeting. But let me start by turning this on. There we go. I can see it up there. Okay, so firstly, the four things that I hold most important for Rotary clubs and that I'm asking Rotary clubs to be aware of in 2023-24. And the first one is international service. Rotary International exists to support clubs. Rotary International can't exist without the support of clubs. One of the reasons that we can do all the things that we can do is because we're part of a huge organisation. We're not struggling to just be a small little community group with a voice. We've got a huge brand and a huge awareness, and I'm asking clubs this year, help us pay the rent. Pay your own rent. You get so much from being a part of Rotary International. Let's put something back in and acknowledge the fact that we've got international service. The second thing, diversity, equity and inclusion. I mean, go you, Leonard, for what you're doing here. I've heard so much nonsense about DEI and what it is and what it isn't, and all I'm asking clubs this year is for members to be aware of the dimension of DEI. It's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to go out and build a wheelchair ramp. I'm not asking you to do anything particular. Just be aware of it, because I believe that when Rotarians particularly are aware of diversity, equity and inclusion, you will see the gaps and you will see the things that probably should be fairly done. Who can't? Who can tell me what's the second question of the four-way test? Anyone? Is it fair to all concerned? That's what this is about. We've had this since 1943. It's 80 years old. All I'm asking now, with this focus on DEI, is to sort out and understand. Goodness, Leonard, you should have lifted the mics up. I mean, it's all right. All I'm asking this year is, yes, is it fair to all concerned? Ask that question. I want to find out, what does all mean? Who is all concerned? That's why I want to focus on DEI this year. The third thing, and I'll talk about this in more detail later, or in a few minutes, is the Zone 8 Domestic Violence Awareness Program. So that's something that's coming up, and I will say more about it later on, because there's a lot that could be said about it, and it's an exciting program. And the last of the big four things, of course, is what the project that Kiki's adopted as her partner project for the year. Your legacy project for a centenary of Rotary in South Australia. So, with all the other clubs that I've visited, Kiki either says something about this, or we show the part of the video about it again and reinforce it. We're not going to do that today because you know what this project is, but there's two things that Kiki reiterates at the end of all that, and I'll make it to you now. And the first one, and these things seem to resonate with clubs. The first one is, we as an establishment are really good at going into Indigenous communities and saying, we know what your problem is, and here's a solution. We give them a solution to their own problems. What this project does is empower and enable and give that community the tools to come up with their own solutions, to develop and better their own outcomes. And the second thing is, when we get this right, when we know exactly what to do and how to do it, we can document it and package it and put it in a box, we can give that to other Rotary clubs. And it's a piece of intellectual property that's going to be valuable in far more places than simply where we're operating from. And I suspect, not just in Australia, because there are a lot of countries around the world that have their own Indigenous communities with their own issues very similar to ours. And for that, I always say to a club, I commend this project to you. I don't need to commend it to you, but I can tell you, Kiki and I are both very passionate about this, and we haven't struck a single club yet that I've spoken to that's had any objection to this, and most of them have been prepared to write a cheque or commit on the spot to making a donation. I don't talk about membership in the video, and I may be the only district governor for quite some time that hasn't spoken about membership. And so I'll talk about membership now, and this, when I get to the end of this slide, that's the last you'll hear me talk about membership unless you've got questions for me. So here's my view. Membership is a club matter. If you have a membership challenge, then you know what it is. And that challenge could be inviting members, recruiting members, retaining members, engaging members, keeping members away from each other's throats because they don't get on. Yep, that exists. But if you've got a challenge, then you know what it is. You know far better than what I do what it is. If you have a challenge and you want to address it, then you know what you want to do. Or if you don't know how to address it, we've got some district resources that can help you. But we're not going to tell you you've got to have a target. We're not going to tell you to increase your numbers. We're not going to tell you to do anything with membership, because membership is something that's yours. Rotarians don't join Rotary International. They don't join District 9518. They join the club, and they join it for a reason. And it's a reason that's associated with your club. My belief is that you are a Rotary Club to serve. That's why Rotary was created, and that's your principal reason for existence. A major pillar of Rotary is fellowship. And to my mind, if you are providing service to your community and you are enjoying fellowship, you are a good, viable Rotary Club, whether you've got 160 members or 10 members. You are a viable club. Membership is an enabler. Keep it in that perspective, and don't be distracted. Please don't be distracted from service by an obsession with having more members. We're not a pyramid selling organisation. Membership is not something that we pursue for the sake of membership. Membership is something that we would pursue to enable us to do more in Rotary service. And the truth that I put up there, it applies to clubs big and small. It's not the size of a Rotary Club or the number of members that a Rotary Club has that makes it a viable Rotary Club. It's the quality of the members that you have and what those members do. Here endeth my lesson about membership. I'm happy to discuss it with anybody later on, but I'm not going to make it a pillar of the district governor for this year. Let me talk for a few minutes about the Zone 8 Domestic Violence Awareness Program. For those of you who aren't quite sure, Zone 8 is all of the Rotary clubs, all the Rotary districts in Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific. There's 20 Rotary districts, about 1,300 clubs. This year, all 20 district governors in Zone 8 have agreed that we will promote the Domestic Violence Awareness Program that was commenced about 2.5 years ago by the Rotary Club of Ballina on Richmond in District 9640. You know where Ballina is, up on the northeastern coast of New South Wales? And it's simply an awareness program to say no to domestic violence. It's amazing, and the more I've researched it and gone into it, it's amazing just the tentacles that domestic violence puts out. There are so many people who are victims of domestic violence and don't know that they are victims of domestic violence because they've inherited it, they've grown up with it, it's become part of their life. Just as surprisingly, there are a lot of members or there are a lot of people who are perpetrators of domestic violence and don't know that they are the perpetrators of domestic violence. And it's not just a bloke who finishes work, goes to the pub, has a drink, come home and gives his wife a biff because dinner's cold. That's part of it, but there's a whole lot more to domestic violence. It's not just women who are the victims of it, children are the victims of it, men can be the victims of it. And it's not just physical violence, it can be intellectual and mental violence too. And what's been found is that where a light has been shone on this, the extent of the problem has been found to be far greater than was ever expected. Police Commissioner Grant Stevens here has said that he could put his entire police force onto domestic violence as an issue and still not have enough people to deal with it. And that's dealing with nothing else. So, just a quick case study. The Rotary Club of Ballina on Richmond, when they started this as an awareness program in their community, almost 3 years ago now, in their community of under 10,000 people, they had 33 members. Now, they have got 80 members. That makes them about the 5th or 6th largest Rotary Club in Zone 8. The only bigger ones are Melbourne, Perth, possibly Campbelltown, and possibly Auckland. They're major cities, and this little place has attracted a membership through, and they attribute all that to this awareness program. And the reason they do is because, like all Rotary clubs, all over their communities, they've got their little Rotary wheel, and it says, you know, Rotary did this, it's a Rotary park, a Rotary seat, it's a Rotary organisation, Rotary meets here. And it's there all the time, and so people see it, and eventually it just becomes part of the scenery, and they stop seeing it. As soon as they start putting this hand on this purple sign next to that Rotary thing, it says no to domestic violence, Rotary became visible again. It stopped being invisible. And suddenly there was a great interest in Rotary because not only was there a different thing to look at, but there was a cause that everybody could resonate with. Now, what can a club do? Just be a part of it. Grab this logo and put it on your stuff. Jeff Cluse, who's the District Partnerships Chair, is coordinating an activity that will occur on or about the 25th of November in Elder Park. It'll be a large rally. It'll be in conjunction with similar rallies and marches in all the major cities around Australia that are being planned by Rotary and New Zealand. And that's a district event. You can be a part of that or not. It depends on your own will. But I'd encourage the club to get in touch with Jeff and say, hey, yeah, Rotary Club of Adelaide, we're on board with say no to domestic violence. What I want you to do, please, this is an ask. Will you please allow your club to be identified with no to domestic violence as a message? Put that logo on your Facebook page, put it on your website, put it on your email address, signature block. If you're out in the community with one of those A-frames, put it on there, be identifiable with it. Can you imagine the power of this for this whole year with 1,300 clubs in Australia and New Zealand all over the place saying no to domestic violence? People won't just see it once, they'll see it everywhere. And they'll see it associated with Rotary. Right? It's lifting this from somebody saying, hey, there's a problem here, to saying there is a problem here and we need to understand what it is. So at its lowest level, will you do that, please? Just be identified with this. If you want to take it a step further, take it out to your community. Get some partners. What a great thing to put in the window of a local pub or whatever it is that you associate with the Adelaide Oval. The Rotary Club of Adelaide says no to domestic violence, and so does the Adelaide Oval Trust. The Rotary Club of Adelaide says no to domestic violence, and so does the Lord Caledonian Hotel, or whatever it is. Get your partners involved. And I'll tell you what, everybody that you ask, that you go to and say, we'd like you to say no to domestic violence with us, you're not going to get a single person to say, well, no, I think I'd rather say yes to domestic violence. It's a pretty compelling thing to say. Taking it further, have an event. If you're having an event that's involving a community, make it This year, make it the domestic violence awareness event. The Rotary says no to domestic violence awareness event. Just get it up and out there. Something, anything. There's resources available. Jeff Cluse can point the club towards those. It's on that screen, and if you like, I can send somebody the website. But there's resources available. There's documentation that helps planning things. There's a T-shirt that you can wear or give to people to wear. Any number of things that you can do, but mostly, just be creative. Get this message out there. I think it's important. Do I sound passionate about it? Because I am. And I'd like every club in this district to at least be a part of this. Enough about domestic violence, unless you've got some things you want to discuss afterwards. I'd just like to shine a light for a moment on the district conference next year in Loxton from the 15th to the 17th of March. You can find a link to the conference website and a video that explains it on the district website. I'm not asking people to come because it's the district conference and Rotarians should go. That's not very engaging. There's enough information there for you to know what the program is, who you're going to see, what events you can go to, and how it will all roll out. And you can look at all that and you can make your own decisions as to whether or not there's going to be value in that for you. It's something I can take advantage of as the district governor, bringing it to my own hometown, but I love that place. And I think it should be shared, so I'd love to be able to welcome you there. But if you look at it all that and you've got all the information, you think, nope, that's not for me, that's fine. That's fine, but at least give yourself an opportunity to know what you're saying no to. I'd like to talk for a minute about perspective. This is the last thing I want to talk about. Perspective. Some of you might recognise this bloke. His name's Shekhar Mehta. He was the Rotary International President in 2021. Shekhar lives in Calcutta in India. When Shekhar goes to work, what does he see? Well, he sees a lot of humanity. And it's not a good look that he sees. Lots of people without shelter, without food, without much to wear, certainly no money, no health care, in fact, not much hope. So Shekhar's right in the middle of an environment that we don't see, that we don't really know. We know it's there. And so, I don't know if you can read that, but from Shekhar's perspective, Rotary is an important and practical part of his community, the community he lives in, because he sees the need for that level of that type of service in his own community. It's right there with him all the time. This bloke's Barry Rassin. You probably recognise that picture too. He was the RI president in 2018-2019. Barry lives in the Bahamas. The Bahamas, if you don't know, is the third largest economy in the Americas, and very different from Calcutta. When Barry goes to work, he sees impressive infrastructure. He sees wealth. He sees people on holidays. He sees people without a lot bothering him. In fact, from Barry's perspective, Rotary is really a discretionary part of his community's lifestyle, not their life. So the reason I'd use this to illustrate perspective is, what does perspective give us? Well, in Shekhar's environment, that was the theme he gave us when he was the RI president: serve to change lives. And look at that logo. It's a hand shaped a bit like a begging bowl, cradling the world, probably cradling humanity. And he's saying, he's almost beseeching people, will you please do something? There are things here that need addressing. Will you please do it? Do. From Barry's perspective, there's golden wave, there's waves, beach, sunshine. I mean, this is an optimistic logo, and he said, be the inspiration. And so from his perspective, what he wants Rotary to do is be something. Not do something, be something. Neither of these is worth any criticism, but you can see that your perspective drives your focus on things. Same organisation, two people in the same position, just a couple of years apart, with a completely different focus, all, I suspect, because of their own lived experience and hence their perspective. So why am I saying all this to you? This is the largest Rotary Club in this district, and by far the second largest in Zone 8, Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific. I mean, after this club there's Daylight, and then there's, I think, Perth or Auckland. And there would only be 55% of the numbers of this club. Your club and your meetings are professional, they're structured, they're just a comfortable, this is just a comfortable place to visit too. You really know what you're getting when you come to a club like this, and it really is good. It's Rotary in action, and you can see it. The service projects that you do are awesome, and that's particularly so in this, your Rotary year, or your centenary year. What you're doing this year is really impressive on steroids. It's just remarkable, and I congratulate you for that. And so your perspective of Rotary as members of the Rotary Club of Adelaide, through the lens that you have as the Rotary Clubs of Adelaide, incorporates all these things that I just talked about. And you've got to go home from these sort of meetings and knowing you're a Rotarian and feeling pretty darn good about that. That's great. Now, there are another 89 Rotary clubs in this district, all of them in different circumstances to this club, and all of them in different circumstances to every other club. All of them are doing Rotary differently, and all of them with a different lens and a different perspective. We've got clubs, as I said before, with 10 members or less. Clubs that meet in a cold parish hall and do their own self-catering for their dinner. And they have one of the members brings along a pot of stew, and that's their dinner for their meeting. There's clubs that do so much in service that it really belies the modest size of those clubs. So that's the panoply of Rotary. Part of the panoply of Rotary, there's so much more to it. All these different perspectives on what Rotary is and how Rotary behaves. But every Rotary club is facing in the same direction, united by the ideal of service above self. Now, when you see some of this, and I am so fortunate as the District Governor to be able to see it almost day in, day out through a different perspective myself, when you see this, you can't help but get an expanded perspective on just how extraordinary is this extraordinary organisation of ours. I wonder how many members here, if you've been in Rotary a few years, you remember we used to visit other clubs to do a make-up. You remember that? We don't do that so much anymore. In fact, if I said it's reduced in importance, I probably wouldn't be wrong in saying it's almost unimportant now. We just don't do it because make-ups aren't important and our attendance is not quite so obligatory. Nothing wrong with that, but I think there is a downside, and that is that Rotarians tend not to spend much time visiting other clubs. And do we lose something from that? Well, I think we do. I think we really do. So my final message with you this afternoon is I'd like you to think about taking some time to visit another Rotary club. Not as a make-up, but as an opportunity to enhance your own perspective on Rotary and perhaps share something of what you are and enhance the perspective of what Rotary could be or might be with the club that you visit. I know that in any of the clubs in this district that you might visit, you will be welcomed, as I know that Rotarians will be welcomed here. 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, the Rotary International President Holger Knack gave us the RI theme, Rotary Opens Opportunities. Well, there's a lot of opportunities, plenty of opportunities out there for an expansion of our own perspective on Rotary, and all we need to do is get out and show up, and I encourage you to do that. And I thank you so much for your hospitality this afternoon, the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to see this wonderful entertainment that we've got and the messages that Lena's delivered. And I'm happy now, if we've got any time, to take any questions or join in any discussion that you might have. But in any case, thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Just don't go away. Members, we have time for one question. Lisa?
Thank you so much, David, for coming. Craig, for coming. I beat David for his question. I'm wondering, since we had the great joy and pleasure of having Gordon with us, I was wondering on your thoughts of what you learned the most from him and how you were inspired from him this year.
Did everybody hear the question? It's my impressions and what inspiration I draw from our RI President, Gordon McAnally. This guy's a real deal. He really is a genuine person. I could not have believed, having met Jennifer Jones earlier in the year, that there would be somebody who would be as impressive. You know why this guy's in this job, because he should be there. So what he says he means, and he is absolutely real. And I think if I'm inspired by anything from him, it's his own strength, given the story that he tells about his own family's fight with mental health. No, we are really well led as an international organisation. This guy deserves to be where he is, and we should be pretty happy about that. Thanks for the question, Lisa.
David?
Thank you, Craig.
Last question.
Is that on? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Craig, for your address. And I'd like to know. You mentioned Barry Rassin, who was actually the world president when I was a district governor, and I took his theme very seriously. You mentioned about membership, and you see that as a club challenge, and you mentioned that our club is now the second biggest in Australia. 8 years ago, that wasn't the case. We were heading south at a rapid rate of knots, 30% in 15 years down. And since then, we've held our own, and we've done all the sorts of things that are necessary to make, and we did it by taking a strategic approach. And the secret to success was successive presidents all committed to that strategic approach. Now we have a regionalisation project, which is about exactly the same thing, because Rotary is continuing as a big picture to go south. 5,000 members left Rotary last year, the year just gone. In the last 5 years, 154 clubs handed back their charter. We are an ageing cohort, and we want to be successful and sustainable for the future. So we have the regionalisation project. I'd like to know what you, as a district governor, and your district team are doing to support the next district governor that's coming in, who's going to adopt this pilot and set it up. And I'd also like to know from you what your cohort of district governors are doing to support that pilot that RI has invested in to the tune of $2 million.
Well, big question. I hope you heard that, because I don't want to repeat it. So my own personal view is that we have agreed to be a part of this pilot, and we are going to be a part of this pilot, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. So whatever is needed, we'll do in the interests of the district. So we're not going to do anything that is believed seriously to be contrary to the interests of the district, but we're not going to stand in the way of regionalisation, and we will support things and find ways of doing things rather than reasons for not doing them, or articulating reasons why they might be difficult to do. We've given that undertaking, and we will hold that. And so in support of the incoming district governor next year, Murray-Louise Lees, she and I spent a lot of time talking about how we can make this work. She's in fact on the implementation or the establishment team, so she's very close to the way this works. We don't always agree on everything, but we are agreed that if this is going to get a return on investment, then we've got to be all lined up in the same way and working towards it. The other part of the question was, what does my DG cohort think about it? There is no consolidated piece of work, because I think all the districts are all different. We have some districts where the districts are lining up very heavily to try and encourage people to be community leaders, if you know what they are. There are other districts that have expressed some doubts about this and are withdrawing a little bit. So as a group, I can't say that we're all lined up, other than, and there is one district that has actually withdrawn and didn't vote to be part of the regionalisation pilot. So there is no line-up amongst all the 20 district governors in the zone, but there is a will amongst all the district governors to ensure that while we are part of this pilot and while it's going ahead, that we make the most of this, because this is an opportunity. Now, we might all have different views about how we might best take advantage of that opportunity, but that is a common theme. Everybody wants to see this happen in a way that's good for Rotary. Does that answer your question, David? I mean, there's a whole lot of discussion we could go into this, and as you know, and I know you would like to hear more, but I think probably we're at the end of the meeting.
We are.
Thank you.
Craig, don't go. Members, on your behalf, I'd like to present Craig and Kiki with Rotary Centenary History Book and the 100 Not Out. Fabulous reading. And I'd ask you all to stand and thank Craig. This is a group of creative people. We thank you for your words today. Well done.